Thursday afternoon, and welcome to 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. That's Dan Lucero. We are here with you for the next approximately 2 hours here on 580 Sports Talk today. We are off a little bit early because we've got the Topeka Invitational Tournament. Day number 1 of the TIT coming up today, live from the Charger Dome at Topeka West High School. Yours truly, Dan, and the coach Larry Latimer will be your broadcast team. We've got a triple header of games coming your way today. Game 1 of the event, that's Highland Park versus Shawnee Mission North. That's getting underway here in just about 20 minutes, just over 20 minutes. We are going to have games 2, 3, and 4 for round number 1 of the tournament. So that includes at about 5 o'clock, Hayden versus Wichita Southeast. Southeast is hot, by the way. They've won 4 of their last 5 and 3 in a row. First meeting ever between those schools. There's another fun fact for you. Game number 3 of the day, our second game. Topeka West, the host team at the Charger Dome. They're taking on Lansing, a UKC matchup. They've already played each other this year, in fact. And in the nightcap tonight, it will be the Topeka High Trojans versus the Chesty Lions of Lawrence, the team that has won the most TITs of anyone from outside the city limits. So that'll be your nightcap tonight. All that action can be heard right here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW. Again, beginning right around 5 o'clock, might be just before that, but around the top of the 5 o'clock hour, we'll send it out to the Charger Dome and get you coverage of those games tonight. We are super excited about it and excited for you to join us for those games as well. We do have plenty to get to on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. However, we'll talk plenty of Chiefs this hour, also plenty of NFL news and notes. A lot more coach firings today, among other things. Not head coaches, but the Buccaneers fired almost their entire coaching staff, other than head coach Todd Bowles. You're getting so close, Tampa. You're almost there to figuring out what's going wrong. Almost there. The Dolphins have fired their defensive coordinator, Josh Boyer, and their entire defensive staff. They took a big step back this year. Mike McDaniel also didn't hire him, so I think he just wanted some continuity and then said, all right, get out. So we'll talk about that and some other news and notes from around the NFL. Plus, the Chiefs are heading overseas next year. Going to go play in Germany next year. How about that? We'll talk about all that coming up in the 4 o'clock hour today, along with some Chiefs-Jags notes here in just a few moments. Guest list today, shortened show, so shortened guest list for a Thursday, but we will crosstalk with Jake coming up at the bottom of this hour. Bottom of the 4 o'clock hour, we've got our 23rd Street Brewery Big 12 basketball breakdown with the great CJ Moore of The Athletic. Awesome stuff from CJ covering the Sunflower Showdown this week. We'll get his thoughts on what the environment was like at Bramlage, what's next for K-State, KU, and the rest of the Big 12. We've still got What Is Wrong With You. We will also get to a round of either or over under. It's all coming up on this Thursday edition of 580 Sports Talk, and we would still love for you to be a part of the show today. Hit us up on the Big O Tires text line. You know the number, 785-272-9429, and you can also check us out on YouTube. Sports on 580 WIBW is our YouTube channel. Dan and I sitting here with you. You can watch us.
Are we twinning today?
Yeah, we are. We're wearing the same thing.
Yeah, we got the polos and everything.
Yeah,
this is our answer to the ABC Gold Blazers from Wide World of Sports.
Yes, our athletic gear quarter zips.
Our black WIBW quarter zips. We've all got those.
No hat for me today, though. I didn't throw one on. I also forgot a belt today. So,
oh, man.
Yeah, I was just telling Jake while we were switching out of the studio, we're playing the hits today. I went out and I bought a belt at Kohl's during lunch. I can't do it.
No, I get it.
I was in here talking to Jake and Fulton during a commercial during Mic'd Up. I put my hands on my sides and thought, oh no, something is wrong. If I had just never looked down, I wouldn't have known, but I did. And well,
I'd have been happy to lend you an extension cord. I don't have a belt that would work for you, but
yeah, I could have used my mini extension cord that goes with my broadcast gear. Just wrap that around.
Hey man, he's ragging on your cord.
Oh my gosh. So that is all coming up today here on 580 Sports Talk. And again, find us on YouTube, Sports on 580 WIBW. Thanks to everybody who has subscribed over the last couple of days, though. Those numbers continue to go up. If you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to do so. It's the best way to find all of our videos, all of our recaps. We will do a video recap today at the end of the day from the TIT. So be on the lookout for that. And, of course, keep listening here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW. And, of course, the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429. Housekeeping out of the way, we don't have a headline segment today, and we'll get to Chiefs-Jags in a moment, but I feel like we should probably follow up on that rumor about the Royals we got to yesterday because it has been made official news as of 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, not a rumor anymore. During the changeover between
hot change.
Yeah, but the changeover between Mic'd Up and 580 Sports Talk, the Royals signed a multi-time All-Star closer, which is not the kind of thing that happens every offseason. And if it's the kind of thing that's happening, it generally means that they got him for a discount.
Yeah, multi-time All-Star closer. Oh, man, we got Craig Kimbrell. Even that nowadays would probably be not great. That's like a 50-50 proposition. At least he's a decent guy. There's nothing wrong with him off the field. You know who does have problems off the field? Aroldis Chapman. He's your newest Kansas City Royal. According to Mark Feinsand of MLB.com, put this on Twitter right about the top of the 3 o'clock hour, the Royals are signing Aroldis Chapman. It'll be a 1-year deal worth $3.75 million plus performance incentives. We made our stance on that pretty clear yesterday when this was still just rumored by Mark Feinsand, when it wasn't known. He's coming off his worst year of his career. He has a bad record off the field. He has always been a hothead on the field. And you mentioned this while we were chatting about it before the show started. But when you've got a guy who on his last contract was making $15 million a year. Hell, last year he made $18 million for the season. He made almost 18 back in 2016. His arbitration deals with the Reds, he was making $5 million, $8 million. You signed him for under $4 million coming off the worst year of his career. I got to be honest with you, Dan. I don't think the 14th season of Aroldis Chapman's career needed to be in royal blue. That doesn't really seem like smart spending to me.
So we talked about the why, right? The why here, the motivation for the Royals to do this from a asset management perspective is the hope that if there's anything left in Chapman's left arm and he produces 3 or 4 solid months worth of back-end relief, he would be a very attractive trade target to a team with actual designs on contending in August and September, which we kind of feel like the Royals, spoiler alert, aren't going to be in the 2023 season. And so you can recoup your investment, a very minimal financial investment, $3.75 million.
Yeah, the Royals can afford it.
Yeah, there's the pocket change for John Sherman and the ownership group. You can recoup your investment in the way of acquiring a prospect or two that could help when you are, in fact, ready, ideally, to play some meaningful baseball games once again at Kauffman Stadium, if indeed Kauffman Stadium is still standing by the time the Royals are ready to play meaningful baseball games again. So from an asset management perspective, you can make it make sense. It just feels like the kind of thing you don't have to do.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like the kind of thing that you do not just from an asset management perspective, because I don't think, like, when I think about franchises that just purely look at things from that perspective and not from the perspective of what kind of guy are we bringing into the clubhouse? What kind of guy are we asking our fans to root for? Like, I don't think about the Royals as one of those franchises. Like the Rays or the Astros or somebody like that would be a franchise that would say, never mind the off the field stuff, never mind, all of that. We look at this as a depreciating asset that maybe we can spin a couple of good months into something valuable for us. My fear is that the Royals are the kind of franchise that want to go to their fans and say, hey, look, multi-time All-Star closer. We got him. He's ours. Tickets on sale now. Buy your number 54 jerseys. Like it
please don't do that, by the way.
Yeah.
Please don't buy.
Do not buy an Aroldis Chapman Royals jersey unless you were doing so ironically. And even then I would think about it.
Yeah. By the way, to your point about, well, maybe because I think you're right. You think, all right, if we're not going to contend, they're probably not. We can move him, get something back. You can afford $4-ish million in 1 year or however much that contract you have to end up paying, get an asset back. That's fine. The one thing that would bring up pause with that, other than the fact that he's coming off the worst year of his career in general, The first half of the season has been his worst half of the season each of the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't the case in 2019. Take 2020 out. It didn't count. It was a fake mirage of a season. 2021, in the first half of that season, his ERA was 4.55 in 29 and 2/3 innings, a 1.5 whip. Last year, which walks in hits per inning pitched, if you didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, in which he was bad all year, his ERA in the first half was 4.74. He was really bad in the first half. So he's been bad in general and getting off to bad starts.
And the other thing about this, too, is that you can't, I don't think the Royals, J.J. Piccolo, Matt Quatrero, can look at us with a straight face and say, well, we needed left-handed relief. They had two guys coming back in Amir Garrett and Anthony Misevich, or A.J. Misevich, however he prefers to be referred to as. It says Anthony on his baseball reference page, so we'll go with that. Who were just as good or better than Chapman last year. Like Amir Garrett, like Chapman, walked a lot of guys, but also struck out more in the batter per nine and had better fielding independent numbers, way better fielding independent numbers than Aroldis Chapman did. Anthony Misevich came over from Seattle in a trade. I forget which trade that was. I don't think that was the Santana trade. I'm going to double up on that and look. I think it was a different trade. That Misevich came over in. No, it was just a purchase. Like they bought him from the Mariners. And he didn't pitch a lot of innings. It's not a huge sample size, but 15 innings worth of work with the Royals, and they were genuinely good. Like he didn't walk anybody and struck out 11 guys per nine, which is more than Chapman struck out last year. Like, and then, you've still got Richard Lovelady in the pipeline, a guy who's had a tremendous amount of minor league success, who's coming off of an injury and should be ready to impact the major league club in 2023. The Royals are not so hard up for left-handed relief that they need to be the team to try and resurrect the career of Aroldis Chapman. It just, I hope I'm wrong, but this feels like hey, that guy's famous. Let's sign a famous player. Because let's be honest, you look at the history of the Kansas City Royals, it would not be the first time that they have signed a well past the sell-by date player for the sake of saying you did. Word to two-time MVP Juan Gonzalez. Word to Benito Santiago.
Sometimes doesn't matter if the personnel change, the traditions don't.
Did Juan Gonzalez even get on the field as a Royal?
That's a great question. I actually don't know.
I'm going to double check that right now. But I remember they signed Juan Gon. Great player. Yeah, 33 games in 2004.
But yeah, there's your Royals headline of the day, or all this chat. I mean, maybe he does pitch well, and if that's the case, fine, get him out of here by the deadline and move on.
Yeah, but, your best case scenario is there are a couple of hard-throwing Latinos on a baseball team right now that you don't know their names, but that you'll get excited about when they are acquired for Aroldis Chapman late July, early August.
Let's move on to the Kansas City Chiefs, the somewhat more, I don't want to say important team right now, but they're part of the season much more important right now at the very least. They'll take on the Jacksonville Jaguars coming up just 2 days from now, almost exactly 48 hours from now. In fact, 3:30 on Saturday. Of course, you'll be able to hear that on our family of stations. That game, I believe, will be heard on the big 94.5 Country coming up on Saturday afternoon due to K-State Sports here on 580 WIBW. I saw this piece today from 538 about Patrick Mahomes and how he's been just as good as ever, if not better in some cases than he's been over the course of his career up until this point. And that makes sense considering he's absolutely going to win the Most Valuable Player award this year. But I did then come up with this question. And it's one we've asked about plenty of games before, but I think in this contest in particular, it stands out. Outside of Patrick Mahomes, who's the most important Chief in this game? Is it someone offensively that he's going to get the ball to or that's going to be protecting him? I think you could make an argument, especially for that second part there. I think you could also make an argument for plenty of guys on the defensive side of the ball because, look, the Chiefs' offense, I think, is going to be fine. I don't have all that many concerns about them against Jacksonville. It's
Andy Reid off a bye. They're going to score 30.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have a lot of concerns about the Chiefs' ability to put up points with an extra week of prep. Generally speaking, that's how it works.
Especially against the defense that, to their credit, has been playing a lot better in the second half of the season, but in terms of just overall talent is still easily bottom half of the NFL. No doubt about it. So who would you point to as the most important Chief in this game, taking out Mahomes? Because in Patrick Mahomes' illustrious, albeit still somewhat brief career, the team has only lost one game in which he was great, and that was the 2018 AFC Championship game because Bob Sutton did not know for the life of him how to call a defense to stop slants, Also, that wouldn't have even mattered if Dee Ford had just been onside.
Right.
So every game other than that one that Mahomes has been very good or great in, the Chiefs have won.
And even that game, he didn't play a great first half.
No.
You could say that Mahomes has played like 2 bad halves of playoff football. And one of them was the first half of that AFC Championship game. One of them was the second half of last year's AFC Championship game. He's played 2 bad halves of playoff football.
Yeah, you can probably take the whole Super Bowl 55 performance out because he didn't have a prayer.
No,
he didn't have a chance.
he was unbelievable. He was Jordan with the Wizards, except like 88 Jordan, if you portaled him to playing with Kwame Brown that day. That's what that was. But I'll give you 2 names. One pretty obvious, one maybe a little less obvious, but they're both on the defensive side. Number 1 is Chris Jones, who still does not have a career sack in the playoffs.
Isn't that crazy?
It is remarkable. He should have had 2 in the AFC Championship game last year. If he has 1 in the AFC Championship game last year, the Chiefs probably win. Because, there were 2 moments where he had Burrow dead to rights, and Burrow escaped, made a big play on what ended up being, I think, the game-tying drive for them, or the go-ahead drive for them. So Chris Jones is obviously going to be especially motivated, and he's the leader of the pass rush. And the one thing you can do to unsettle Trevor Lawrence is get that good pass rush. Take him off of his first read, make him make some decisions on the move, and see how that toe is feeling. That's been enough of a nagging thing to have him on the injury list for Jacksonville. But yeah, Chris Jones, but always Chris Jones is that important for the Chiefs.
And to the point about Chris Jones as well, do you know what his stat line was the first time these teams played?
Lawrence or Jones?
Chris Jones.
I think he was pretty good, if I recall.
2 tackles, 2 quarterback hits, a sack and a half. Yeah, he was pretty freaking good in that game.
Yeah, so expect him to have another big one because he's Chris Jones, and that's what he does. The other guy, though, is Nick Bolton. And the reason I say Nick Bolton is really impactful is twofold. Number 1, I would imagine the Jaguars would like to get Travis Etienne a little bit more established than they did in the first meeting when he only had 11 carries. They'd like to be able to run because if you can run the ball effectively, you can shorten the football game. Fewer possessions for Patrick Mahomes, the better. That's not to say the Jags are going to completely take the ball out of Lawrence's hands, but they would like to get a running threat established. The other thing, if you've watched Doug Peterson's offenses over the years, and if you've watched this Jacksonville team, especially if you watched them in their comeback against the Chargers, they love the middle of the field.
Yep.
They love the middle of the field. So Nick Bolton's positional discipline and awareness are going to be really, really important, because he's going to be the guy that has to cover that middle of the field, that has to be disciplined, that maybe has to make some tackles off of short gains. Like if you look at the Jaguars in the first meeting against the Chiefs, they had a bunch of really short gains on passes. And Bolton's going to have to be, I think, a big part of that in this second meeting as well. And they're going to need his help probably on the tight ends. Evan Ingram has really had a phenomenal, really great year, but especially has come on here in the second half of the season. So I think Bolton and certainly the other linebackers are going to be really important. But that's another area where Jones and his counterparts on the defensive line are going to be important, because the Chiefs have been so good at batting short passes down. They're going to have their hands up, be ready to disrupt passing lanes in that way. That's how the Chiefs are going to get off the field, give Mahomes and company more opportunities to put a number up.
I think for me, both those picks are good ones defensively. I would say on the offensive side, it's not one specific player, so I'm kind of breaking my own rule here. It's going to be the interior of the offensive line, and I'd love to point everyone over to Arrowhead Pride. Ron Kopp, who's their film guy, did a really good breakdown of what the Jags like to do with some of their pass rush specific sets. They go with, remember the NASCAR package? That was real big for a few years, like 2015-ish.
4 defensive ends on the field at once.
Yeah. There aren't a lot of teams that do that now. The Jags do, though. They like to bring that out because they like to put a lot of pressure on the interior part of an offensive line. You know what's great about the Chiefs? The best part of their offensive line is the interior part of it. You go Joe Tooney, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, 1, 2, 3 from guard, center guard in that order. That's the best interior offensive line in the NFL. And I mean, it's right up there with Philly as your best interior groups in the entire league, and Detroit is up there as well. They are going to have to hold up because Patrick Mahomes, the only way he's really comparable to any other quarterback in the league is when pressure is in his face up the middle, he gets flustered a little bit. It happens to every single quarterback.
Literally all of them.
Yeah. So that's not a criticism of Mahomes, but that is one of the few ways where you can rattle him and force him into tough decisions, rollouts, throwaways, whatever it ends up being. They like to put all their different pass rushers. It doesn't necessarily have to be the reserve guys. Kalavon Chazon, who was on that LSU national championship team, has never quite turned into a first-round caliber player like he was drafted to be, but he's still a decent enough reserve pass rusher. You've got Josh Allen, obviously, is their best outside pass rusher. Travon Walker was the number 1 pick in the draft this year. They will move all those guys across the defensive line. It's not just the reserves racing up the middle in that quote-unquote NASCAR package. They'll put Josh Allen there. They'll put Travon Walker there. So if that interior trio can hold up and protect Mahomes right up the middle, I think he's going to end up being just fine. He's going to play well. The offense is going to click. Defensively, I would agree with you on Chris Jones, but I would also throw in the guy who has racked up a bunch of sacks in the postseason in his career, the 5th most in NFL history, in fact. It's Frank Clark. He's healthy to go. Andy Reid said he's likely going to play in this game coming up on Saturday.
A full participant today in practice, which is a change in status from the last 2 days when he was limited, and no injury designation for Clark. In fact, no injury designation for any Chief except for McCole Hardman, who didn't practice again today and has been ruled out. So that tells you that we should see Frank Clark at ramming speed, and he has been a player who has brought his best when the games have mattered most in January and February.
And 2, ball security has been a bit of an issue this year for Trevor Lawrence. Interceptions-wise, he really hasn't been that. I mean, he's only thrown 8 interceptions over the course of the year, and you think, dang, he's been real safe with the ball. He is 4th in the NFL, in number of fumbles this season. The only guys ahead of him, Josh Allen, we know about his ball security issues. Justin Fields, who ran the ball more than any other quarterback this year. And Matt Ryan, who was just under siege the entire season behind that Colts offensive line. Trevor Lawrence is the only other player in the NFL with double-digit fumbles on the season. He might not throw interceptions, but if you can get home and knock the ball out, force him into difficult situations in the pocket, I think the defense is going to have a big day as well.
I know we're due for a break here, but speaking of the injury report, we actually have Jacksonville's as well. Everybody, there's 6 guys on the list. They were all limited Wednesday. All of them were limited today, so all of them have a questionable status for Saturday's game. That's wide receiver Kendrick Pryor, long snapper Ross Matisick, wide receiver Jamal Agnew, offensive lineman Brandon Sheriff, offensive lineman Luke Fortner, and quarterback Trevor Lawrence. Now, no reason, I think, at this point to be concerned from the Jacksonville perspective about Lawrence's status for this game, but Sheriff is a big deal. Big deal. Agnew is kind of, even though it's a shoulder, Agnew's kind of a big deal too, because if you recall, the Chiefs had built that 20-0 lead against Jacksonville in the final minute of the first half at Arrowhead Stadium when the two teams met, and Agnew popped a big kickoff return that set them up for a short field touchdown and gave them a chance to kind of stay in the game at the intermission. We all know the Chiefs' special teams have been a little shaky. That's a sneaky guy to keep an eye on for Jacksonville on Saturday is Jamal Agnew in the kick return game.
He all season has been their spark plug guy. He did it in the Charger game. He had a big kick return that helped set things off for one of their drives. So I would agree with you. He is definitely one of those X factor type of players in that game for Jacksonville. We'll talk more Chiefs, more NFL coming up later in the show. Right now, we've got to take a break. We'll play either or over under next on 580 Sports Talk. Back on 580 Sports Talk, 3:33 on this Thursday afternoon. I'm Brendan. He's Dan. Real quick before we get to either or over under, I know we're beating a dead horse at this point, but this is from Mark Feinsand's, this is Brian Murphy of MLB.com, but it's about Mark Feinsand's report that the Royals are signing Aroldis Chapman. How's this whopper of a paragraph for you? The 2022 season was a miserable one for the 7-time All-Star. It saw Chapman record some of the worst stats of his 13-year career and was blemished by multiple injured list stints, as well as questions regarding his willingness to be a team player. I mean, if that doesn't sell you on Aroldis Chapman, I don't know what will.
That's what I want to bring into a clubhouse with a bunch of young guys is an example like that, entitled 14-year vet. If he's going to act like that, that's great. That's the influence I want for all those young pitchers. That's the influence I want for all those young position players. Definitely that guy. Definitely the guy with the first Major League Baseball record for being the first guy suspended under their domestic violence policy. Just love it all the way around. The vibes are tremendous.
I'm going to say something I'm going to regret. Dayton Moore wouldn't have done this.
No, I don't think he would. I think you're right.
Oh, my God. I hate myself for saying that. All right. We do have to get to some either or over under. Jake's going to join us here in a few minutes for Crosstalk. I'm going to bring up a question that Jake and Fulton talked about on Mic'd Up today.
Okay.
Which of these happens first? A team goes 20-0 in an NFL season, including a Super Bowl win, or we have another 300-game winner in Major League Baseball? For what it's worth, Justin Verlander is 56 away. He's at 244. He's also about to turn 40.
Yeah, I think it's likelier he gets there than it is. I don't think we're ever going to see a 20-0 NFL season. I don't think it's ever going to happen. There's a reason we never saw a 19-0 one.
Yeah.
17-0 is as far as we've gotten. 18-0, I guess, if you count the 07 Patriots.
But they didn't finish the deal.
No, they didn't.
Most important one.
And they had the greatest quarterback of all time, the greatest coach of all time, and the greatest wide receiver of all time on that team. Even that team couldn't run the rack when they were just one away. I don't think that's ever happening. With the salary cap, the league the way it is, designed the way it is, to bring you back to the middle, I don't see it. I do not see it ever happening. Ever, ever, ever. I think it is more likely we get a 300-game winner by accident. Maybe there's some freak who pitches into his mid-40s like Nolan Ryan or Jamie Moyer pitching into his late 40s that gets there. But maybe Verlander's that guy.
But even there, the game has changed so much that, Clayton Kershaw's pitched for, when did he break in? 05? No, 08?
Yeah, something like that.
He's not even to 200. He's the best left-handed pitcher of a generation. He's not even to 200. And his career is over within the next 2 years, probably.
Yeah, he's 34. He's got 197 wins. Only won 20 twice. Like the guys used to win 300 games. They'd win 20, 4, 5, 6 times.
Yeah.
You don't see 20-game winners in a season anymore.
No, the game and the management of pitchers is just so different.
You have to win 20 for 15 years to get to 300.
That's outrageous. That nowadays, man, you got to 10. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's
boy,
good.
You must have gotten some run support.
Good year. Yeah, exactly.
Poor Jacob deGrom left out to dry all those years with the Mets. He's he go 8-7 with a 1.0 ERA.
It's such a different game, and pitchers don't go far into games either. And yeah. I know you want to talk about beating a dead horse. I know I do that with that topic all the time, but it's just I really don't think we're ever going to see either, honestly. Verlander would need to win. He won 18 games this year on his way to winning a Cy Young.
Mm-hmm.
He would need to do that for 3+ more years,
right,
in a row. And again, he's about to turn 40. He's going to turn 40 before next season starts.
So my either or over under. What would you rather attend as a fan?
Okay,
a neutral site conference championship game in football, or an international Super Bowl?
Which would I rather attend as a fan? A neutral site conference championship or an international Super Bowl? International Super Bowl.
All things considered. Travel expense.
Yeah.
All those things considered.
We had a great environment down in Jerry World for the Big 12 championship game. It was a really good environment. K-State fans traveled, and there's a lot of K-State fans in North Texas anyway. TCU is obviously just right down the road in Fort Worth. We had an awesome environment. Have you seen Pac-12 championship game attendance? Nobody's going to that. Those games get outdrawn by Texas high school football. ACC championship, if it ain't Clemson or Florida State, I don't think that's doing many numbers either. in wherever they play. Charlotte, I think, is where they play that game. I'd rather go to the International Super Bowl. Yeah, it's going to be expensive as hell, but I don't know. You get some rowdy European hooligan fans. That'd be more exciting than, honestly, the crowds at a lot of domestic Super Bowls.
I bring that up because I just have a feeling we're going to have a Super Bowl in like Munich within 10 years. I think we're heading in that direction.
Man, there's just
2 weeks, so the teams can't complain about jet lag.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
here you go. What happens first? A team in a foreign country or a Super Bowl in a foreign country?
Super Bowl in a foreign country.
That's probably true.
I don't think, other than Canada or Mexico, a team in a foreign country. Like, I know they'd love to put a team in London. The players' union will fight that tooth and nail because, like,
no one would sign.
Yes, the travel,
the taxes,
logistics would just be brutal to have to go there every week. So have a team going there every week.
You'd have to play. And then 9 games, leave, have your bye, then play 8 road games in a row. Yeah, that's the only way you could do it.
Imagine you got Thursday night you got Sunday. Your Sunday game. Let's say you're the Chargers and you play in Kansas City on Sunday, and then you got Thursday against the London Jaguars.
Thursday night football from Wembley, folks,
from jolly old England.
Oh my God.
Speaking of either ors and over unders, the NFL playoffs are heating up, and with FanDuel, every play is a rush. New customers join today so you can bet the divisional round with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up with my promo code Lucero. With $150 in free bets this weekend, the possibilities are endless. I know, Brendan, you really like that Bengals plus 5.5.
You're right about that.
Bills. America's #1 sportsbook has all your favorite bets, money lines, point spreads, player props. Plus, with FanDuel, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So football fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, with promo code Lucero. And make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 and present in Kansas. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable free bets. Expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com.
We've got to take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. We're cross-talking with Jake Lebahn after this here on 580 WIBW.
3:43 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero with you. Brendan Dworzinski on his way to the Charger Dome at Topeka West for our evening-long coverage of the Topeka Invitational Boys Basketball Tournament, starting as soon as we're done around 5 o'clock here on 580 Sports Talk. But this is a two-man show still for the time being because we are joined in studio by the great Jake Lebahn from Mic'd Up. Jake, how you doing, man?
Doing well. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing very well. You made the exact same joke that Brendan made on the air, off the air, as we were doing the changeover there. You said, Dayton Moore doesn't sign a Aroldis Chapman.
No. He was bad last year.
No, terrible. See, career worst ERA, worst strikeout rate since his first full season in the bigs, and his second worst walk rate. Or that might be reversed. It might be second worst walk rate and worst strikeout rate.
Either way, not good.
No, yeah, either way.
Either way, bad.
Yeah, it's all
Either way, bad.
It all looks gross. But Aroldis Chapman, the newest Kansas City Royal. I just they're not that hard up for left-handed relief is the thing. Like Amir Garrett basically was Aroldis Chapman last year.
Yeah, he wasn't great either.
Yeah, but he was better.
Yeah, he was.
And the Misevich was fine. They got Dick Lovelady coming back. Free Dick Lovelady.
Here's the thing. I mean, I get it. He's probably cheap. They're hoping for a bounce back year. Like I mean, I understand it, but if they don't if they really don't bring back Greinke because they're going cheap. Because I saw MLB trade rumors.
Ken Rosenthal had a piece in The Athletic about this. Yeah,
about they'll sign Greinke to a incentive-laden deal. How about you just sign the guy? You've got the money. Your payroll's going to be like $90 million.
Right. Yeah, don't go cheap on one of the best pitchers in franchise history.
And he had a 3.50 ERA last year.
Yeah. Like there's still some value he can bring to a team.
Yeah, he was the second best pitcher for the Royals last year behind Brady Singer. Bring him back, okay? Bring him back.
Well, then where are Jordan Lyles and Ryan Yarborough's innings going to come from?
The bullpen?
Just a weird offseason.
God, yes.
I guess my gripe with this is I want to know what your plan is. And I don't see right now JJ Piccolo now fully in charge. Like, what is the plan? Is the plan I just hope we get a little better? That's not a plan. Wish in one hand and do you know what in the other. See which one fills up first. I've heard that saying a time or two.
I mean,
before.
he's not a great guy, obviously.
No, yeah, that's the other thing too. Not
a great guy.
Not a great guy. Not a great teammate.
Yeah,
doesn't make a lot of
sense.
sense.
Sign Greinke and I'll be happy.
Okay, won't take much. Just bring back Zach.
Yes, because he's good. You need. Was it Matt Quatraro said you need like 9 starting pitchers?
Yeah,
we have like 4. Bring him back.
4 and some possibles.
Bring him back. It ain't that hard.
Well, let's shift gears. Chiefs Jags on Saturday. We started the show talking about this. Which player do you think is the most important? Patrick Mahomes doesn't count, not part of this discussion because obviously he's the X factor of X factors. But which player on the Chiefs do you think is the most important to their success on Saturday against Jacksonville?
On the Chiefs?
Yes.
Oh, Chris Jones.
Okay. Well, I said Chris Jones too, so
yeah.
I can't be mad at you.
No,
but,
if Chris Jones plays well, it's basically the Chiefs play well on defense. Like it's as he goes. If you take Chris Jones out because he's that dude, right? That's like saying if Patrick Mahomes plays well, the Chiefs are going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take Chris Jones out of the mix.
Sure.
Then I will probably say, I'll say George Karlaftis. If you get after Trevor Lawrence, I think you are in a good spot because I think the secondary, I think L'Jarius Sneed, I think McDuffie, both those guys are playing well. Thornhill, Reed. Can you really have elite level safety to really, really impact this game? I don't know. Plus, I'm not scared. The Jags have no dudes. Do you realize that the Jags are one of 6 teams that don't have an all-pro first or second team?
Did not know that.
I think it was 6. I think we counted 6. Now, granted, I understand. You want to know what team did not have a first or second team All-Pro that's still in the playoffs?
Well, other than Jacksonville, you mean?
Yeah.
Let me think. The Giants?
Nope,
No,
Dexter Lawrence.
Dexter Lawrence,
Mhm.
yeah. So it's got to be the Bengals then.
The Bengals.
Yeah.
But do the Bengals have dudes?
Yeah, they got dudes.
They got dudes. Yeah, obviously. They got 2 dudes at wide receiver, a dude at running back, dude at quarterback.
That's something I
But
was
the Jacks don't have any dudes.
Yeah, I was talking about that with Brendan on Tuesday, that all of the game wreckers are in the NFC. The only game record defense, I'm talking strictly defensively here. The only game record left in the AFC playoffs is Chris Jones. The Chiefs have that guy. The guy you have to game plan around. The guy who can single-handedly blow up your game plan. Like, the Bills have good pass rushers. Do the Bengals have, like, Trey Henderson's a good player, even though he's out there with one hand. Sam Hubbard's a good player.
He's not a dude.
No. He's not Chris Jones.
No.
He's not Joey Bosa. He's not Khalil Mack.
Or Nick Bosa.
Or
Micah.
Yeah.
One of, like, the 8 dudes on the Eagles.
Yeah, like, all those guys are in the NFC. But in the AFC playoffs, they all went home or they're hurt, like Von Miller. Von Miller's that guy, but he's not going to play. So that's a huge advantage, I think, for the Chiefs both ways, because the one guy who can, on the front 4, the front 7, who can disrupt a football game plays for the Chiefs. And they got the best quarterback. Like, we're not talking about, like, last year, I think everybody went to the playoffs and felt like, oh my gosh, this is a gilded path for the Kansas City Chiefs to get to the Super Bowl. Like, it could not be playing out any better for them than it does now. Like, especially when they got past Buffalo, and it felt like, oh my gosh, this is a perfect path. But really, honestly, kind of feels like that's the case now for the Chiefs. Like, it lines up really good for them based on who's left, who's, how teams are playing, and the most impactful guys. You could say, I think, credibly, the best offensive player and best defensive player left in the playoffs, both Kansas City Chiefs. On the AFC side, anyway.
Yeah, AFC side. Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah. That's why I'll take Karlaftis, just because number one, do you have on your team? Do you have this is how you should build your team. Number one, do you have a quarterback? If the answer is yes, then you're good. Number 2, how do I make that guy uncomfortable? Okay, get some dudes up front as a pass rusher. Number 3, all right, I've got that dude at quarterback. I got that pass rusher. I need to protect that guy from keeping that guy from my guy.
Right.
Like, the Chiefs have proven that. They not 1,000-yard receiver, and they have the best offense in the NFL and one of the best offenses ever, because you've got Patrick Mahomes. It helps to have Travis Kelce. I understand that. I do. But, like, that to me, yeah, I'll give George. It low key of like Thornhill plays really well. That really could elevate the Chiefs,
because he's been the one guy in that secondary taking the ball away.
So I'll say, or Reed, one of the say, because I think the corners for the Chiefs are good. I really do. I think the Chiefs corner. I think McDuffie. I think and Snead are good. I really hope they lock up Snead for a little bit, offer him 3 years, $45 million or something like that, an extension. That's what I would do if I were the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think
I want McDuffie and Snead to be there for the next, because McDuffie's first round pick. He's there for 4 more years after this, man. 4 more.
No, I think Snead's a building block.
Yeah,
particularly if it's Steve Spagnuolo's defense. Yeah. Like, I think he's gotten the best out of Snead, and I think he might be their best cover corner too. Quiet as it's kept, because we think about Snead, we think about him coming off the edge or playing the slot, but he'd probably be their best outside guy if they need him to just play on the outside the whole time. What other game are you most excited about divisional playoff round?
Oh, I think there are 2 snoozers.
The NFC games, or
no? I think the Chiefs Jags. Chiefs win by 10. I'm not worried about this game at all.
Okay.
No, I think the Chiefs roll. If they don't, it's not because of something the Jags did. It's because something the Chiefs did. Defensively, is Jalen Hurts healthy?
Yeah.
Then they roll. Not worried about them. I'm interested to see what the 49ers do with Micah Parsons. He's a game wrecker.
Yes, he is.
What do they do? And is Dak good again? Because then they can beat the 49ers. Yeah. And then Bills versus Bengals. The line's up to like 5.5 now.
Yeah.
Bills
Bengals. Yeah, 5.5.
What am I missing? Is that O-line? Is that O-line 2 points?
That's the only thing I can think of because, look, I know obviously that Monday night game they were playing didn't get played to completion. And obviously that was in Cincinnati where this game's in Buffalo. It looked like the Bengals were going to run them off the field first 5 minutes.
They're up 7-3 with the ball.
They were up 7-3. They had driven the ball past midfield. Obviously, there was a lot of football left to play. We don't know. But it kind of felt like that was Cincinnati's game. Like the way they came out, the way they moved the ball at will. Like the Dolphins scored 24 offensive points. I know they had short fields for a lot of it, but they scored 24 points against a team that scraped to 11 the week before. Like I think the Bills defense has some problems, and I think the Bengals are able to exploit it with all that talent they got at wide receiver.
No, I'm interested in those two games. Like the Sunday games I'm interested in. Saturday, it's kind of like the appetizer. Okay, I got my bloomin' onion. It was nice.
What's coming up Friday on Mic'd Up from noon to 3?
We are going to talk with Eric Eager of Sumer Sports, Seth Kaiser. We'll talk all things Chiefs with Seth from the Chief of the North newsletter.
Great.
We'll talk with Eric Eager. We'll get our picks. And, I mean, who knows what random 90s song we'll probably bring up and talk about because what rabbit hole we get into, I have no idea.
And you got Washburn Coaches Show tonight.
6 to 7. Maybe the Washburn men figuring it out.
Yeah, big win for them over Fort Hayes at Lee Arena last night. You can hear that on our sister station, Classic Country 106.9, with the voice of the Ichabods and one half of Mic'd Up from noon to 3, Jake Lebahn. Jake, thanks for coming by.
Appreciate it, Dan. Have a good one.
Thank you very much. That is Jake Lebahn. That is a wrap on the 3 o'clock hour. Coming up in the 4 o'clock hour, got some NFL news and notes we're going to get to. We're going to play a round of What is Wrong with You, and it's our Big 12 breakdown, Big 12 basketball breakdown presented by our friends at 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. CJ Moore from The Athletic is going to join us, break down that wild Sunflower Showdown from Thursday night, as well as all of the other happenings from the world of Big 12 basketball. The 23rd Street Brewery Big 12 basketball breakdown coming up at 4:30. So hang with us. This is 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Hour number 2 and maybe the final hour of 580 Sports Talk. On this Thursday afternoon, Dan Lucero with you at the solo mission as Brendan Dworzinski is getting things set up at Topeka West High School for coverage from the Topeka Invitational Tournament this evening. A triple header of basketball action coming your way. Brendan Dworzinski, Larry Latimer, and yours truly in part of the coverage tonight for the Topeka Invitational Tournament. Can tell you that in the first game of the day, in the first round of the TIT, Highland Park leads Shawnee Mission North 35-20. That game just getting underway in the second half. So we'll have the second, third, and fourth games for you tonight, starting with Hayden against Wichita Southeast. And we'll get rolling on that one as soon as they tip it off. Brendan Dworzinski will be ready to take the reins. But in the meantime, in between time, it's me and you and everyone we know hanging out, listening on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9 on the YouTube stream. Hi, YouTube, youtube.com/@sportson580. Or if you're listening on the web at 580WIBW.com. We are glad to have you with us. Coming up later this hour, we got 2 more stories going at it in What Is Wrong With You. Brendan will join us from the Charger Dome to take part in What Is Wrong With You today. We'll also chat with CJ Moore from The Athletic, who was at Bramlage Coliseum Tuesday night for the Sunflower Showdown. It's another edition of the Big 12 Basketball Breakdown, presented by 23rd Street Brewery. And when I say our friends at 23rd Street Brewery, I really do mean it, because friends bring friends food. And that's what Matt from 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence did today. He came and he brought out some food for myself, for Brendan, Jake, the sports team, the rest of the staff here at the WIBW building, the Alpha Media Studios here. Brought us some food, brought us the Bill Self, the Buffalo Chicken Mac and Cheese. It is my personal favorite. We got the Fitzgerald Reuben, named for the new baseball coach at KU. Looking forward to sinking my teeth into that. Got the Big Dub Pizza, named for Wayne Simeon, the Meat Lovers Pizza, and some Naked Nachos are in the building as well. And we appreciate Matt very much. Not just me, not just the sports team, but everybody here at Alpha Media appreciates the gesture and, of course, the delicious food. 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence, off of Clinton Parkway in Castle. The title sponsor of the Big 12 Basketball Breakdown with CJ Moore. I might even eat on... No, I'm not going to eat on camera. I would be eating at the board, and that'd be bad. I get in trouble for that. That's no good. That's no fun. But it's great food. It's an awesome atmosphere there, and can't recommend it highly enough next time you are in Lawrence. But first, wanted to continue chatting about some news and notes from around the NFL, but also had some good comments, I thought, coming from the YouTube chat. And you can post in the YouTube chat. You can also hit us up on the Big O Tires text line. 785-272-9429 is the Big O Tires text line, and get involved with the show today. During Crosstalk with Jake Lebahn, to wrap up the last hour, I posited that Chris Jones is the best defensive player, most impactful defensive player left in the AFC playoffs, that most of the other guys that you would consider to be game-wrecking front seven forces are in the NFC playoffs. The ones that you would consider, those players that you would consider those kinds of players in the AFC, have either been eliminated or, in the case of Buffalo's Von Miller, are injured and out for the season. So Chris Jones is that guy in the AFC playoffs. I think he's the best defensive player, most impactful defensive player left in the AFC playoffs. Begging an interesting question from Matt, which I've got up on the screen here on YouTube. So if you're watching YouTube and following along, you can see Matt's comment on the screen. Would you take Chris Jones over Micah Parsons? That is a fascinating question. Strictly from a contract and age standpoint, you'd almost have to take Parsons over Jones, because right now he's less expensive and he's younger. Strictly speaking about that. But if I had to go win a game tomorrow, that makes it a different question, right? Like if I'm building a team for the next 3-4 years, trying to win Super Bowls, plural, I got to go with Parsons based on his contract and his age. But if I'm trying to win this year, if I'm trying to win Super Bowl 56, who would I rather have, Chris Jones or Micah Parsons? I think the answer is probably still Parsons. The argument for Jones is that his pressure comes from the interior. And like we were talking about in the last segment, that's where the pressure really busts pipes for every quarterback. Every quarterback. And Chris Jones provides that interior push, and he can still be impactful rushing from his defensive end position. He's gotten much better in that role this year too, but that interior pass rush is so rare. There just aren't a lot of guys in the league that can get after the quarterback like that as a defensive tackle. There aren't but a handful of them. Aaron Donald, when he's not injured. Dexter Lawrence has been that guy for the Giants right now during this playoff push and really throughout the whole season. And Chris Jones. And that might be the list. That might be it. Like Quinnen Williams for the Jets is outstanding as well. There are some really good ones, but Jones is just about top of the heap when it comes to pass rush on the interior, which is the surest way to short circuit what it is an offense wants to do. Here's another sure way to short circuit what an offense wants to do. Line up wherever and get into the backfield, because that's what Micah Parsons does. And that's certainly what he did against Tampa Bay and completely blew their spot up. He is a multi-positional threat. Like, I hesitate comparing guys to all-time greats. Like, I hesitate comparing somebody to Aaron Donald, right? Because I think he's might be the best interior defensive lineman in the history of the NFL. Like, it's him or it's Mean Joe Green. Right? That's the list. So I hesitate comparing guys to the greatest of the great, especially young guys. But, like, I didn't get to watch Lawrence Taylor in his prime, but that's kind of the vibe I get from Micah Parsons, that he can come off the right and he can come off the left. And the first thing you have to do as a quarterback is you have to find him. You have to find number 11. And you have to make sure you've got help, because chances are your left tackle and your right tackle, doesn't matter, can't do it alone. Or maybe he'll drift up the field a little bit and, drop back in run support or drop back in coverage. He's just so versatile. He can do more things. Line up on either side and just destroy your screen game or your quick game. The Tampa Bay quick game had no chance. And that was like their entire offense this last year. And their quick game had no chance against Parsons. He just deflected everything. So, yeah, I'd go Parsons over Jones. That's not a knock. Like, Parsons might be the most dynamic defensive player in the league right now. It's no knock to finish second to that guy. And like Matt points out in the YouTube comments, Parsons offers more versatility. And that's the succinct version, I guess, of what I'm offering here. But great question, Matt. Appreciate the comment on YouTube. We were also talking in the first hour about international games, because the Chiefs are going to play one next year. Kansas City Chiefs are headed to Germany. I do not know how you say Kansas City Chiefs in German. I took Spanish for 8 years. But the Chiefs are going to Germany, likely to play a game at the Allianz Stadium in Munich. That would be my guess. Maybe they play in Berlin. I don't know. I know the game this year, the Germany game, Seattle and Tampa Bay, was at, I think it might be the Allianz Arena, but it's in Munich, home of the world famous Bayern Munich soccer club. So the Chiefs are going to Germany. They're going to play one of their 9 home opponents in Germany. It is not likely it'll be a divisional game, because typically the games that are sent overseas are not divisional games. So, it won't be the Broncos, it won't be the Chargers, it won't be the Raiders. I can't imagine that the Chiefs would be willing to give up a home game against Buffalo or Cincinnati or Philadelphia. I think all of those games, those feel like games the NFL is probably going to want in primetime windows as it is, like Monday, Sunday night, Thursday night. So I think those games are staying at Arrowhead. So that leaves 3 other home games for the Chiefs of the 9 they have listed that could potentially be the home game that gets moved to Germany. Miami, Detroit, Chicago. Both Miami and Detroit were 9-8 this last season. Chicago was 3-14. I don't know. I feel like Detroit, like if the NFL had their druthers, maybe they'd send the Lions overseas. I think if the Chiefs had theirs, they might go ahead and take that Bears game overseas. Feels like the Bears would be big in Germany. Chicago sausage. Then again, Polish sausage. Maybe not so big in Germany. Maybe that one makes sense. I don't think it will be Miami. I think it'll be either the NFC teams. I think it'll be either Chicago or Detroit that Kansas City ends up playing over there. But one of the things that we were talking about was international games and their preponderance of those now, and whether or not that might lead down the road to either a Super Bowl overseas, which I absolutely think is going to happen at some point, or a team that is located overseas, an expansion team, or one of the current 32 that is moved from its current residence to permanent residence in Europe. And we talked about the travel aspect of it and why I think the NFL Players Association would fight it. Ross in the comments on Twitter makes a good point. That wasn't the right one. This is the right one. Ross points out New York to Los Angeles is a 6.5-hour flight. New York to London is 7 hours. Not much is made of the New York to the West Coast travel. If it was done in game pods like baseball, someone will do it for the money. That's just it. It's like you can't play like a series in London. That's just not, the nature of the NFL is it's one game. It's you play Sunday and then you play another Sunday or a Monday or a Thursday. You could not ever have a Thursday night game coming off of a Sunday night game in London. You just couldn't do it. Like a London team could not host or really play because of the London. I mean, the whatever teams in London's division has to travel there every year. And then the other opponents that they'll have, the other 14 opponents, half of them have to go to London. That London team's got to travel, make that flight. And then you're talking New York to London. So at a minimum, a 7-hour flight. Like East Coast, West Coast, maybe that's once every 4 years that a New York team goes and plays in LA. Like the Giants play the Rams, like once every 4 years. That team in London, whoever it is going to have to make that flight every other week. And granted, like you could put back-to-back, you could have a back-to-back home games, or maybe you just make them play on the road for their first half of the schedule, and then the second half of their schedule is all home games. Like I'm sure there are workarounds the NFL would suggest if they're really pot committed to doing this. But yeah, I don't care for it. I don't think the Players Association would care for it. And I don't think you'd have enough players who would want to do it, who would want to be, given the choice. Do you want to be on the London Jaguars or whatever? I don't necessarily know that would fly practically from that standpoint. So again, thank you, Ross, for the comment. Thank you for chiming in, tuning in here on the YouTube stream on 580 Sports Talk. Some thoughts from the Big O Tires text line from the 785. What if Europe had a 4-team division? What if there were 4 European teams? Just added on 4 teams to the league and they all played in Europe. Man, again, like you're talking about the shortest possible flight, right? That would make sense. You have London to New York. Well, okay. They're not playing all their games in New York. Teams aren't giving up home games to meet London in the middle in New York, right? Like London's going to have to fly to Seattle once every 4 or once every 8 years. That London team's going to have to play in Kansas City. That London team's going to have to play in Dallas. That London team's going to play in Atlanta. That's a rough flight. And you got to do that many times. Now, it's hard enough on players that have to do it just once. To ask the team located out there, I just think it would be such a profound disadvantage for that team at the end of the day. Even if you messed with the bye weeks or added another bye week, that might be the concession, right? Like you travel to London and you get a bye. But again, you're asking the London team to play back-to-back weeks. I think they need to add another bye anyway, personally. But yeah, I don't think it's practical. Good line from the 785 of the Big O Tires text line. Bring back the Concorde. Yeah, speedy overseas travel. London to New York in 45 minutes. Plus, you got to get, like traveling internationally for anybody who's ever done it. That's tough to arrange for you and your spouse if you're on a honeymoon or your family if you're on a vacation. Imagine arranging that for an NFL team and support staff and maybe family. That sounds like, and you got to do it every year, not just, it's a one-off. Oh, we're doing this once. Yeah, I have a lot of trouble ever seeing that come to fruition in the NFL. Vance, our guy Vance on the YouTube. That was Sprike and C suck. I I hope I said that right. Can't have a London team and not call them the silly nanny, says Christopher. That's a callback to when Family Guy was watchable, which was many, many years ago. I can't believe that show's still on the air. Quick aside, I cannot believe Family Guy is still on the air. There are enough old musicals and 80s TV shows to reference during those flashbacks, and then you cut to Brian and Stewie doing stuff together. And that's still popping. That's still something people are watching. Some other NFL news and notes to touch on that I think are noteworthy. We didn't have the Black Monday for head coaches, right? We didn't have that day where like 5 or 6 head coaches got fired. Well, really only 5 vacancies as it currently stands. It's not going to be a great big head coaching carousel. There are a lot of offensive and defensive coordinator jobs opening up. Greg Roman out in Baltimore. It was time. Greg Roman did some wonderful work with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson won an MVP in the Greg Roman offense. But sometimes things get stale and you need a change. You got to do something different after a while. It happens to every coach. So Greg Roman's out as the OC in Baltimore. Josh Boyer, it was the defensive coordinator in Miami. He was there when Mike McDaniel got there. I was going to call him Mike McCarthy. Wrong guy. He was there when Mike McDaniel got there. They worked together for a year. Mike McDaniel today deciding that's enough of that. Josh Boyer's out as the DC with the Dolphins. Tampa Bay fired 8 assistants today, including offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich. I don't think the problems in Tampa Bay were all Leftwich's fault. It feels like scapegoating, as Brendan put it when we were talking about this at the very top of the show. It feels like Todd Bowles is just right up against figuring out what the problem is. It's him. It's like the "I think you should leave" sketch with with Tim Robinson in the hot dog suit. He drives a hot dog car into the department store, and everybody's looking around, and Tim Robinson in the hot dog suit. Now we're all trying to find a guy who did this. Like, it's you. It's you, Todd Bowles. The problem is you. It's you. Hi, you're the problem. It's you. Byron Leftwich was a guy who a lot of people thought might get a head coaching look after last offseason. Now he's, for now, out of a job. I bet he lands one of the teams that is currently looking for an offensive coordinator. And I bet that whatever team hires him, I think is going to be happy to have him. Also, this last night from Mike Kliss, who covers the Denver Broncos for local television in Denver. I want to make sure I get the wording of the tweet exactly right. Mike Kliss tweeted this last night. He has been reporting a lot on the Broncos coaching search, obviously, and reported today that, or yesterday, that Sean Payton impressed the Broncos in their interview on Tuesday. This is what he tweeted late last night. Sleeper candidate has emerged for Broncos, former Stanford coach David Shaw. Shaw, pro-style coach at Stanford, and knows the NFL game as he was 9-year assistant with Philadelphia, the Raiders, and Baltimore. David Shaw, who resigned as the head coach at Stanford after this last season because they were going to fire him if he didn't. David Shaw, the picture boy for the law of diminishing returns in that Stanford gig. David Shaw, potential candidate for the Broncos head coaching job. The jokes about former Stanford provost Condoleezza Rice being involved in the coaching search in Denver as a member of their front office kind of write themselves. But also, this could just be a tea leaf about Peyton, because Sean Payton loves David Shaw. Big admirer of David Shaw, long advocated for the NFL to give David Shaw a look. And that was something that was floated. I mean, this is not the first time David Shaw's name has come up, not in this cycle, but in previous hiring cycles to be a head coach. But perhaps the connection between the Broncos and Shaw is perhaps Shaw would be a fit on Peyton's staff. Maybe the Broncos interviewing Shaw is a gesture of goodwill towards Sean Payton as they continue to pursue him. With Jim Harbaugh off the board, it feels like Payton is the obvious top choice for teams wanting to hire. There's a lot of buzz, a lot of smoke around Payton to the Broncos right now. I don't know why he'd want to do that, come out of retirement for that. He could wait another year, do the TV gig, and be fine. I think keep waiting out Mike McCarthy in Dallas, or wait out McVay in LA another year. But it sure feels like if he gets a job in this cycle, it's going to be Denver. Sure feels that way. So we're going to take a quick break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back on the other side, we're going to play a little What Is Wrong With You We'll hear from Brendan Dworzinski here in just a second and play What Is Wrong With You. See if we can dethrone the woman who sprayed a fire extinguisher all around the Atlanta airport because she tried to dine and dash at the airport B-dubs. That's going to be a hard story to beat, I'll tell you right now. But we got two good ones coming up after this break here on 580 Sports Talk.
At Calhoun's Jewelers, we believe every
What the hell?
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 It's time for another round of What Is Wrong With You on 580 Sports Talk. And to play along, we go to the Charger Dome at Topeka West High School and welcome in Brendan Dworzinski, who is set to call the Topeka Invitational Tournament between Hayden and Wichita Southeast. But Brendan, there is a small issue with that, I'm hearing.
Yes, well, Dan, it is good to hear from you. We are live at the Charger Dome. We actually have good breaking news. So right as we went into the commercial break just now here on Sports Talk, we were informed that one of the competing teams, Wichita Southeast, was not here, and no one could get in touch with them. However, boots on the ground are reporting that the Wichita Southeast Golden Buffaloes team has just arrived. So we are still hoping to get game number 2 of the day, game number 1 of our triple header on schedule on the air about 5 o'clock today. So we are in line to play our first game of our triple header. We are just not sure the exact start time at the moment.
That is terrific. Very glad to hear that Wichita Southeast has arrived safely and that we will have a second game of the TIT on schedule. Also on schedule, it's time for What Is Wrong With You. Once again, our weekly winner, the woman who tried to dine and dash, at the Atlanta Airport Buffalo Wild Wings. And when she was caught and accused and attempted to be apprehended, she grabbed a fire extinguisher and just let it off in everybody's face, just spraying the whole terminal with the fire extinguisher. That is our current champion. Brendan, I will go first with my story today. We love to hear about supportive parents, right?
Oh, yeah.
We love hearing about supportive parents, parents who support their children in all of their school activities. This might be going a little bit too far. We're going to LaGrange, not LaGrange Park. We are going to LaGrange in the Hudson Valley. So I think this is LaGrange, Pennsylvania.
Posers. Nothing but posers.
And we meet a mother of a freshman student at Arlington High School who snuck into school on Tuesday to watch her daughter fight another freshman girl before first period. The mother was not authorized to be in the building and can be heard on a video using vulgar language to encourage her daughter to beat up the other girl. The district did not mention the incident to the school community until an email was sent late Tuesday evening. The communication told of the fight and indicated that school officials in the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office were investigating the matter. On Wednesday, Dutchess County Sheriff's Office Captain John Watterson told Mid-Hudson News that the investigation is ongoing. There are currently no pending charges against the mother or either of the two students. Dr. Moyer said the incident will result in, or Dr. Dave Moyer, he's the superintendent of schools. He says the incident will result in a review of the school's procedures to ensure the safety and security of the occupants. Just wanted to support her little girl in her, in her passion, which is apparently duffing it out with other students in the hallway.
I get it. I mean, look, you want to show support in whatever way you can, and sometimes that's by, I don't know, like maybe breaking the law and maybe also encouraging fighting among high schoolers. Who among us? I don't know if I've ever shared this story with you, Dan. I once, my sophomore year of high school, walked into class. It was last period of the day, like 1 minute before the bell, put my bag down and told my teacher, who I had a good relationship with, I was like, hey, Sam, I'll be back in a minute. There's a fight happening down in G-Wing. I got to go watch it. And so I walked out, and I just walked out of class. And the fight never happened. My friend was supposed to be fighting. It was a girl fight. It was like a whole thing. Everyone was excited about it. Then I walked into class like 10 minutes late, and nothing happened because I went to a super well-off public school, and people didn't care about those things. So there's my fighting story. Not quite as into it as this mother, but hey, we've all got one of those stories, I think, from high school.
From the Gotta Hear Both Sides department, Vance in the YouTube comments refers to this woman as a glittering example of colossal ignorance, while on the text line, the Big O Tires text line from the 785 says, hell yeah, mom of the year. So there you go. Gotta hear both sides.
Love that. All right, for my story,
go ahead.
Dan, we're going to head down to Florida, Eustis, Florida in particular, where an angry woman was arrested after damaging a rented BMW because a man ignored her texts and calls. A Eustis police officer was dispatched last Thursday, to the 300 block of West Woodward Avenue to investigate a report of a damaged vehicle. When the officer arrived at the scene, he found a man in the driver's seat of a late model BMW. The officer saw that the man was covered in glass, which appeared to be from the driver's side window. There was blood on the door and side window. The officer also noted in his report that the windshield in front of the steering wheel looked like it had been punched almost all the way through. The victim told the officer that 26-year-old Janelle Macias had come to see him at his place of work and was angry that he had not answered any texts or calls that she had made to him. He said that she jumped on his back as he was on the east side of the building, and he was able to throw her off of him, then got into his rented 2020 BMW to try to de-escalate the situation. He locked himself in the car, saw Macias run up to the back of the BMW, and took the license plate off. He got out, retrieved the plate, got back in, and rolled the windows up. She then threw her cell phone at him, which he tossed out the passenger side window, locked all the doors. This is when things climaxed as she jumped on the hood of the car, punched the windshield, ripped off the wiper arms, which he had rented again. He told the officer that the blood came from her hands when she cut them while attacking his car. Macias said that she had been tackled by the victim, however, could not explain how that happened or why she was covered in blood or why there was glass all over the inside of the car. She was placed under arrest for criminal mischief and domestic battery and was released after posting $2,000 in bond.
Well, sometimes you're justified in ghosting somebody, I think is the lesson that we can learn from this story. Sometimes you are totally justified to not answer those texts and the calls from the woman or the other person. Doesn't matter the gender here, but the person you don't want to contact, sometimes there's a reason that you don't want to have contact with that person. That is a lot.
Look, sometimes you just know it's not going to work out. Maybe that was a great example of that. Maybe that was a prime example of why, like you said, sometimes it's okay to ghost when you know things are going south and going south in a hurry.
Yeah, I think Matt in the YouTube comments is right. Doesn't sound like it's going to be a second date. There, I think that might not be something that continues long into the memory. Who wins today? Mom of the year or crazy spurned lover? Or we're just assuming, I guess, on the lover part.
I think I'm going to go with the woman who started to punch a car windshield and bloodied herself after also removing the wiper arms and the license plate.
Yes,
I'm too torn on the mom, whether she's a good amount or overly supportive. So I'm too split. I'm hung on that one. So I'm going to go with the insane soon-to-be ex.
YouTube comments have dubbed her the second date psycho. So we're going to go with her today. Does she beat the woman in the Atlanta airport with fire extinguisher?
I'm going to go no. She sprayed that fire extinguisher right in that guy's face. Like, that was really extreme, and there was no need for it. Again, B-dubs is not that expensive. She could have just paid it and saved herself a lot of trouble.
Yeah, it's a classic overreaction, just spraying up an entire gate and terminal. Like, man, you're already got to fly. Like, air travel is not super fun right now, and now you got a woman yelling and spraying random people with the fire extinguisher. That's a bad time. So that continues on as our What Is Wrong With You winner. Brendan, I understand game 1 at the TIT has gone final.
Yes, it has, and Highland Park won in a landslide over Shawnee Mission North. So the Scots, they advance on to tomorrow. They'll play in the nightcap tomorrow. That game went to a fourth quarter running clock, in fact. And I can now update you on start time. As of right now, 4:37 p.m., we are scheduled for a 5 o'clock start. So game 2, our first game of our tripleheader tonight, should start on time. Wichita Southeast is now on the floor getting ready to warm up along with the Hayden Wildcats. So we are still scheduled for a 5 o'clock start time for game 2 here at the Charger Dome.
Duly noted. We will talk to you then. We will talk to CJ Moore of The Athletic after this break here on 580 Sports Talk.
Grip it and rip it at the tee box, the indoor golf facility.
Hey, CJ. Whoa! Breakdown! CJ!
More.
CJ! More!
It is the Big 12 basketball breakdown presented by our friends at 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence, who fed the whole team here at the Alpha Media Studios today. I'm chowing down on the Fitzgerald Reuben between commercial breaks. I'm not making the YouTube followers watch me eat, so you should all be grateful for that. 23rd Street Brewery, got to check them out. Great place to watch a game and a great place to eat. Enjoy one of their micro brews and enjoy a great atmosphere. 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. CJ Moore from The Athletic joins us, as he does every Thursday, to talk Big 12 basketball. CJ, you were at Bramlage Coliseum on Tuesday night. No, you've been in some loud buildings, some great atmospheres. How did that one on Tuesday night compare?
It was right up there. I mean, it was one of the best environments you'll see in college basketball. I think when that place is full and people are excited, it's one of the better venues out there. It just seems to be pretty noisy, and those folks get excited. So it was up there.
What did K-State show you that maybe you were a little unsure about, or maybe revealed about themselves that you didn't maybe know about them in winning that game over Kansas on Tuesday night?
I don't think anything, maybe that they can win without Marquise Noel scoring a lot of points. Maybe that's it. But, I mean, I was already pretty impressed, and K-State had opened my eyes already when it went on the road and beat Texas and Baylor. Those back-to-back wins are about as good a 2 wins in a 2-game span as anybody has in college basketball this year. And that to me told me, K-State's a team that's really, really good offensively, maybe had a little bit to go defensively. Had some moments of good defense the other night. I still think probably get better on that end. But, I was already a believer in what that team could do. So I don't know that I really learned anything the other night other than just, being able to finish a game against Kansas, a team that seems to always get what it wants at the end of games, was impressive.
That's the thing that kind of stood out to me, CJ. And I think that the players for Kansas after the game talking about, and somebody asked them, I don't remember who in the post game, asked them what they thought the difference in the game was. And they pointed to 50-50 balls. And I don't know that they were necessarily right with that answer, but I thought it was revealing in the sense that they felt like they maybe got out-toughed and outworked a little bit. And that just doesn't happen to Kansas necessarily. For Kansas State to make those plays, to make winning plays on defense, to get 4 killer stops at the end of regulation and at the end of overtime, have they proven that they can win games in all of the different ways that you need to win games, to not just be a contender in the Big 12, but to be the kind of team that plays deep into March?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think another big development in that game was he'd had other good games, but Desi Sills being able to step up in a game like that. There's been so much on Marquise and Keontae. Naquan Tomlin has his moment, but to have a third, fourth scorer that you can really rely on, I think that's big. Maybe I learned something about Desi Sills. But yeah, I think that I'm sure after the TCU game, there were some toughness practices type stuff. You gotta be a little tougher in this league, and you're just not always going to be able to win with their offense. And I know Jerome Tang was really, really excited about Ismail Mossad diving on the floor to kind of finish off that win. He told the story in the post game press conference about how in their early in the season workouts when they were trying to make times on sprints, everybody diving and him not diving. So I think that was a big development for them too.
Our guest is CJ Moore from The Athletic, joining us for our Big 12 basketball breakdown presented by 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. You can find CJ on Twitter at CJ Moore Hoops. And of course, check out his great work at The Athletic. For Kansas, is there anything coming out of that game that made you scratch your head a little bit or maybe raise an eyebrow? Or is it just one of those things where, look, nobody goes 18-0 in this league. It's a 1-point road loss in overtime. Kansas is going to be A-okay.
Yeah, you're going to lose games on the road. K-State was coming off a loss and having the season Kansas State had. You knew how excited those fans and players were going to be for that game. I don't know that there was any big, huge takeaways with Kansas. I think, Kevin McCullough, I think when Kansas is really good, Kevin McCullough and Jalen Wilson are pretty good. And obviously, a really, really poor game shooting the ball for Kevin McCullough. I think over the next couple of weeks, the biggest thing for Kansas is maybe getting him to find his shot somehow, and then just finding, one or two guys off the bench that can maybe give you a little bit more. It'll be interesting to see, once MJ Rice is healthy enough to practice a bunch and play, can they get him involved? I think he's talented enough to play in the Big 12, but obviously a freshman, sometimes it takes a little while. But I've seen him on the high school circuit be a pretty dang good player. So I think he's got a chance still this year to make an impact. And then they've just kind of got to figure out that 5 position, the backup 5. I think the one thing that surprised me in the game was that on the final possession of regulation, he had Zuby Ejiofor out there and not Zach Clement. And, I put it on my Twitter yesterday, kind of breaking down what KU was trying to get out of that play. And they were able to accomplish it with Zach in overtime. That was the one thing that maybe, Bill did that surprised me, having Zuby out there then.
And you can check out that breakdown on CJ's Twitter account. I did watch that, CJ. Thought that was very enlightening. That's why you should follow CJ on Twitter at CJ Moore Hoops. Great analysis, video breakdown like that. So K-State 5-1 in the conference. KU 5-1 in the conference. And then there's Iowa State sitting there at 5-1 in the conference. After they knocked off Texas the other night in Ames. Well, the Wildcats, the Clones, and the Jayhawks have not lost a home game so far this year. We talked a little bit about Iowa State last weekend and their effort and their defensive intensity, and that's from the top down. That's from their head coach on down. But if they're to hang in this Big 12 race for the full 18 games and maybe be one of those teams threatening in March, who's their most important guy, their X-factor player who's going to be the reason in some really tough games that he maybe puts the team on his back and carries them through?
It's probably Gabe Cowster. Iowa State has been playing really, really well lately, and he's a big reason why. Like, when he's making shots, I think it raises what they can be. Him and Caleb Grill, I think they're two shooters. They're just a much better team when those two guys are making shots, and they can. Gabe has surprised me this year. Like, I don't think I saw this level of production, this level of consistency coming out of him, and that's been a huge development. In some ways, like when I was doing the preseason Big 12 rankings, like I wanted to put. Now this sounds silly now, or this sounds like, of course you did, CJ, but I wanted to put K-State like 7, maybe even 6. Like I just believe so much in Marquise Noel, and I thought Keontae's probably going to be pretty good because he was really good the last time he played. Now he's 2 years older, and I talked to their coaches and knew how excited they were about him, but I just wasn't sure about the others, right? And Iowa State, I was tempted to put them. I can't remember where I ended up with them, maybe 8th or something, but like you just didn't know if they were going to have enough offensively. I knew Jaron Holmes was a decent player. I knew Osana Suni could go and was pretty good, but I didn't know they'd have enough offense. But Gabe's been probably one of the most surprising players, just how good he's been this year. And man, that's a really good team. Like, their defense has always been good, but they're actually scoring the ball pretty well lately. And TJ Altsberger, everybody's saying, but he's just done such an amazing job there. Nobody saw this the first 2 years, I don't think.
Texas is 4-2 in the league. Obviously, a lot of upheaval there with the firing of Chris Beard. Rodney Terry starting to settle in as the interim head coach for the rest of this season. Do you feel like you've got a good handle on what Texas is going to be under Rodney Terry? And is that still good enough to be a Big 12 contender? Or do you expect that they may have trouble sustaining the level that many thought they could reach this season with Rodney Terry on the sideline?
I think they're going to be not quite as good as everybody thought, but still pretty good. Like, they're probably, end up 3rd, 4th, probably 3rd, 4th, 5th, somewhere in that range in the Big 12. I think they're going to probably, some games they'll like they're going to beat a KU or like they're going to get some good wins, I'm sure. But Rodney's I don't know a ton about him as a coach. I haven't watched a ton of his games, but I will tell you, I was thinking about this the other day. The last time he was a head coach, Thule Boom, who is killing it at Xavier and is one of the best transfers in college basketball, he was on his team. And Bryson Williams, who was a first-team All Big 12er last year, he was on his team, and they went 12-12. So, for anybody that's like arguing Rodney Terry might get this job, like I encourage them to go back and look at what he did there with those two players who were like two excellent college basketball players. Not to hate on the guy, I don't know him. I'm sure I've watched Texas since he took over. They're doing a fine job. I think the team is going to kind of be who they are at that point in the year. Like, yeah, it has to have the head coach, but most of the work's been the off season and the preseason, getting them to play a certain way, right? So I think they're going to still be pretty good. But I just don't think like going into the conference season, you probably thought, oh, that might be a championship contender as far as winning the Big 12, but I don't see that for them. Maybe they'll prove me wrong.
CJ Moore of The Athletic joining us. It's our Big 12 basketball breakdown presented by 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. Let's look ahead to Saturday's matchups for the Sunflower State teams. Kansas hosting TCU. Big TV audience for that one expected. That one's on CBS at noon. TCU coming off of a loss on the road to West Virginia, but they have some impressive wins in league play among their three so far. What's the biggest factor in this matchup to you? What if Kansas wins this game, defends their home court? Is it neutralizing Miles? Is it forcing TCU to shoot from the perimeter? What's the big factor to you for Kansas against TCU?
You have to limit turnovers against TCU because it's probably the best team in the country at turning going from one end of the floor to the other very quickly off a live ball turnover. Like, those dudes can fly, and you want to get them in trying to score in the half court because they're a very, very, very poor 3-point shooting team. And we saw that last night against West Virginia. I thought TCU was about to take off. I'm kind of surprised they went into West Virginia and played so poorly that first half. But they're shooting 28.7% from three. That's 346 in the country. That's hard to overcome, but man, that's a really, really good team. So, but if you take care of the ball and you keep them out of transition, Kansas will have a pretty good chance. But it's going to be hard. I think K-State faced this, that TCU's level of quickness and athleticism was like a shock to the system when K-State played them. And K-State was turning that thing over all over the place. I haven't even looked at the stat sheet. I watched the tape the other day. They had 20 turnovers in that game. It felt like 30. So you can't turn the ball over against TCU. And, both these teams are kind of struggling from three coming in. So, maybe one of them jumps up and starts making some jumpers, but both these teams could use some three-pointers going down.
Kansas State plays host to Texas Tech at Bramlage Coliseum Saturday at 1 o'clock. You'll hear that game right here on 580 WIBW. If you told me after they played KU to the hilt in Lubbock that Texas Tech would still be looking for their first Big 12 win on January 21st, I would not have believed it. Is it just a schedule thing? Is it just somebody has to lose these games and Texas Tech's on the wrong side of variance? Or are there big problems for Mark Adams in Lubbock that he may not be able to overcome in time to get the ship righted against a good Kansas State team?
Yeah, it's just not, the roster's just not as talented as we've seen in Lubbock in the last few years. They can play up and challenge some teams. Like, they're good enough to challenge some teams, but there's one game on the schedule this year that if you want to win a Big 12 title, or two games on the schedule, sorry, that if you want to win a Big 12 title, you got to take care of business. And it's the two games against Texas Tech. Those are not, you can't lose games if you want to, finish first, second, or third in the Big 12. You can't lose games to that team. They're just, everybody's decent in the Big 12. And you could probably include them, but they're on the low. They're clearly, if there's tiers, they're clearly at the bottom by themselves. So this is a must-win game for Kansas State, especially on its home floor. And it's tough to play a game after you just beat your rival. Poured so much into that game. But this is a game that Kansas State has to figure out a way to win.
CJ Moore covers college basketball for The Athletic. You can find him on Twitter at CJ Moore Hoops. And he joins us every Thursday for the Big 12 basketball breakdown presented by 23rd Street Brewery of Lawrence. CJ, always enjoy talking hoops with you. Thanks so much and enjoy the games this weekend.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
That is CJ Moore. And that's going to wrap up 580 Sports Talk. We're going to send it out to Brendan Dworzinski and Larry Latimer at the Charger Dome at Topeka West for high school basketball coverage of the Topeka Invitational Tournament. We'll be back with you tomorrow at 3 for more 580 Sports Talk. See you then.